Welcome back to Olympic Sasquatches and Beyond. I'm your host, Matt Parrish. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host here, Edge from the YouTube channel, Expedition Edge. How are you doing, Edge?
Oh, man, I'm so good. Just got off of a night expedition last night. Finished up my podcast room. I'm excited for this one. Ron Morehead, let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, tonight's one of those episodes I'm really excited about. I had the opportunity to meet our guest when I was a guest speaker back at the Yakima Bigfoot conference last October. And tonight's guest,
I remember that.
Yeah, tonight's guest is one of the guests that remind me why we do this. We talk about encounters, we've talked about the evidence, but every once in a while, something comes along that just hits a little bit different, right? And tonight is one of those nights. We're definitely diving into one of the most talked about and analyzed and debated pieces of evidence in probably the entire Sasquatch world, next to the Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson. I'm talking about something that didn't just spark a conversation. It challenged everything coming deep from in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The recordings that are still being studied to this day. This is the kind of story that pulls you in and doesn't let you go, right? Yeah. So without further ado, author, researcher, and explorer, eyewitness to the legendary Sierra Sounds, please welcome Mr. Ron Morehead.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, thank you,
Ron,
man.
how are you doing?
I appreciate that introduction. Yeah, excuse me. My phone's got to be put on silence here.
Busy man,
I'm doing
busy
well.
man.
How are you guys? Good to be with you. Thanks for asking me.
We're doing pretty good, and I understand about the phone thing. Now they got it on the watches too. My wrist will start buzzing every now and then. I'm like,
well, I had my alarm set for you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no, yeah. So you know, it's so surreal to be sitting here with you. As a kid, my dad would play those Sierra Sounds in the house and just scared the hell out of me and my brothers and sisters. You know, I always thought when I heard that, I'm like, that's real. You know, that's something out there. And then of course we lived in a rural piece of area, a rural property in a small mobile home when I was growing up. So I always thought when I heard those sounds, I was like, man, that's something that could just come in here anytime it wanted to. But as time went on, you know, I learned more about them, and it was pretty exciting. And it was great to meet you for the first time back in Yakima. That was a very surreal experience for me. So yeah, we're glad to have you.
Nice venue there. Yakima Tribe put on.
Yeah, they did a good job. Mel Scahan and the Chamber of Conference.
Actually, they put another one on in Packwood here in June. That's what I'm coming out there for. I'll be at that one.
Oh, nice.
Packwood.
Maybe we'll get down there and be able to see you again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
So
what town are you in up there, Matt?
I am in Port Angeles now.
Okay, I lived in Squim for 8 years. Yeah.
Okay. That's where we're at.
Yep, that's where Edge is.
Squim. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I like Squim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good area, good place. I lived in Quinault for the last 4.5 years, and we had some kind of a habituation site there. We talked a little bit, I don't know if you remember at the conference, that was a while back, but yeah, we had over the last 4.5 years, we had these things coming and going from our property. You know, one of the interesting things was I got your book, and green screen, and I read your book, and you talk about some things that I never talked about publicly that just kind of blew me away. You talked about the metallic sounds that you would hear sometimes up there at the camp, and I avoided for the longest time talking. This is actually the first time publicly. Edge knows that I've told him, I've told friends, but publicly, because I don't have an explanation for it. I mean, the whole thing's a weird experience to begin with, right? But to experience something like that. So yeah, it was really good to read that in your book, to know that somebody else experienced something very similar.
Yeah, that was during the early 70s. We heard metallic
Yes.
and was 19 when I was up there by myself. I think the last one of those chapters in the book there, when I got awoken at about 4 o'clock in the morning with some metallic sounds. I had a visitation earlier that evening, and so yeah, I was quite interesting. Don't know what to think about that. You don't know what it is, but it's something totally different than what you would expect at 4 o'clock in the morning.
We would
go ahead.
We would sometimes hear them outside of the house, like late in the evening time. We were asleep, so if it was going on during the middle of the night, I wouldn't have known. But I do remember one evening particularly, we kept hearing what sounded like chains, sounded like metal chains rattling in the forest. And I told my wife, I was like, that's really weird because there's nobody in there. There shouldn't be anybody, And so we're sitting there and we can hear this. And then all of a sudden this deer just explodes out of the tree line, runs right across our front yard in front of our porch. And then it's followed by another one. And right after that, you could hear the chains and like brush breaking, coming right up to the edge of the tree line, and then nothing. And that was it. I don't know. And I never talked about that publicly because, like I said, I don't know what to make of that. I don't have explanations for that. I never knew or heard of anyone else having similar experiences until I read your book. And so that was
I got theories. I got theories of how that works through what I've been studying, which is physics, quantum physics. So
that's one of the things I was going to bring up. Now, one of the things that I love is that, I was watching an interview and you said that some people say things are, there is kind of a woo side to the subject. But what you try to do is you try to explain some of that woo side, correct me if I'm wrong, through quantum physics. That you're actually trying to put science to some of the things that we can't explain. And I think that quantum physics is greatly misunderstood by a lot of people. Can you explain to us a little more about that?
Yeah, it's in the micro world. That's where they discovered it, all the way from, even Tesla said everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. That includes you and me and Bigfoot and the rock and everything else is energy vibrating at a frequency. And it rides on the back of what we perceive as reality, which is Newtonian physics, which we all was taught in school in 1687. Everything's your 5 senses, that you feel, touch, smell, all that stuff. But there's more going on than that. And it all comes down to the micro world. But you can experience it into this reality that we have. It's just some people want to keep them totally separate. And a lot of physicists even try to keep them separate. But according to Dr. Christopher Breyer, West Texas A&M, everything from the minute atom all the way through the cosmos works under the rules of quantum physics. So I really like that statement. I'm glad there's a professor behind me on that one because I think if the rule exists, it exists for everything. And that's how I look at that. So it kind of got me into understanding more about how the strange stuff works. And a lot of people over the years have reported strange stuff, including me, because we had some strange stuff going on with us up there. And Al Berry, who was a professional we took in there in 1972, he experienced the same stuff. And he had a master's degree in science. And he said, whatever you do, stay with science. He says, this stuff up here just, you can't explain it. Don't talk about it. So we didn't for a long time. But I figure, if there's a science, there's a rule behind something. There's got to be a rule behind how this happens. I mean, how do you think you hear your whole camp being torn apart while we're inside the shelter? You look out there and nothing's happened. Stuff like that was going on, and then the metallic sounds, all kinds of crazy things. But how does that happen? There has to be a law behind it, a rule behind it. Something's going on. And I figured I got into quantum physics, and that's what got me into it, really, is just trying to understand the science that could be behind the mysteries behind these beings that we were encountering in the Sierras. And that's been my 50 plus year journey doing this stuff now. And it's really gotten exciting to me because it's taken me into another level of who we are as humans and what's going on. Because I think that's what another thing that's really misunderstood is how we minimize what we are as human beings and how we minimize what these things are. A lot of people think they're just an ape out in the woods, they're running around out there. I know, I've been up to the Olympics a lot, where you're at. By the way, I like your introduction, and that was nice. The visual that you got there. Who put that together? You did good on that.
I put that together.
Edge?
I put it all together on a little thing on my phone, and so I've got to
nice.
One thing that I've got to do, it plays while we're on there. So what I do primarily, I play that just for the guest, kind of give them an idea of where we're at in the show and edge, and then later on I'll cut it out and it'll be just that intro. So you won't see me or edge like you did a minute ago. So.
Oh, well. I liked it. It was good. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, I lost my track. I'm sorry. But that got me into quantum physics and got me started on trying to resolve how that works. Because I think there's timeline differences. We live in linear time, thinking there's tomorrow coming. There was a yesterday. We're pretty sure of that. And but actually, that's linear time. Everything that flows like a river going down. Just a piece of water going down through there. But that's not the way time is, really. That's just time in our perceived reality of third density, and we're in a third density environment, and that's just the way it is. And but I got all the way back into studying this stuff into Mesopotamia and who we are as humans and how we became who we are, because there's more involved in us than just a shell of a biological body. We have more to us. And I believe these things had more to them. And I think I know why, because I think they were actually, some of them, they're not all the same. Some of them were created long before Homo sapiens. And that's a cuneiform text from the Anunnaki, if you want to get into that, that's why we're all a warring species now on this planet. And that's why we have to strive. And it gets deep, but it's really interesting. It's very fun, really get into it. So I encourage anybody just to start studying it and looking into it, because it's just important for us to know this stuff. And you're only going to learn it if you don't learn from the past, you got to repeat it. And that's just what happens. So we try to read and study and learn. And the people that don't look into this are the ones who are going to lose, because they need to check it out. I think, in my opinion.
Well, there's so much going on out there, and for years I was, I would watch the shows, but finally it got to a point, and then we ended up having our own experiences living there in Quinault on the west coast of the peninsula, and it got to where I had to get out there. And Edge, he is he can testify to this too. We've tracked these things through trackable soil, and then they just vanish, or and it makes no sense why what happened. Or we'll hear things, and then you'll turn around and swear it's got to be like 20-25 feet from you, nothing. But
well, I was going to tell you, I discussed that in my last book, Bigfoot Unveiled, how science can answer that, because everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Tesla, that's quantum physics. Well, energy and matter are interchangeable. Matter, us, and energy, which you don't see, is interchangeable. And that's been established through quantum physics, through Einstein first talked about it, but then Dr. Paul Dirac in 1918 won the Nobel Prize for it, for antimatter. And that's the direct exchange between matter and energy. Then it was also proven in CERN in 2012 at the Hadron Collider in Switzerland, when they changed a particle, they shot it off almost light speed, and it changed into energy. You can detect energy, but you can't see it. Well, it's all done through, everything is frequency. Get that base right there, because everything is frequency. And if you find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. And that's an Einstein statement too. But once you find the frequency of it, and I think that's how miracles were done in the old days, back when miracles were being done, they find the frequency. And that's
probably.
just, that's a rule. So anyway, that's how I think they can go out of our perception. We only see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our frequency of light. Light has a frequency too. Everything has a frequency. Everything has a frequency. Light's frequency is that. Once things go out of that frequency, we don't see it with our eyes. That's all we can see with these eyes. Animals can see other frequencies, some animals. In fact, right up there in Quinault, where you're from, I knew a lady who took a picture of something. She didn't know what it was, but her cat was freaking out on the trail. You might know her. Well, anyway, she passed away, but you know what I'm talking about?
I think I know the story you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Well, she showed me the video, and you could see this pixelization just going by her camera, and she didn't know what to think about that, but that's what people describe to me when they say this all won't disappear. They see a pixelization. So they call it the predator effect. Well, that's when they can change their matter into energy, because that's all you see is that. And it goes out of our perception. We just don't see it. Yet they can do that. And I personally think that's why I got involved with the sound part of it and all the vocalizations that we were able to record up there. They were trying to say that sound is everything. Sound is very important. And if they have the attribute of changing their frequency or finding the frequency to change their matter into energy, they could disappear out of our perception. And that's my theory. And I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
That would affect their density. They would leave a track maybe, but their density would change. And we're in a third density environment, and that's just where we are. That's 3D, and yet we have the ability. Well, we have the attribute within us, if we never learn to develop it, to actually get out of this third density. And you do that through different methods, but it's mainly balancing your own system so you can become aware of who you are and what you are, because our telomeres were cut. We have a definite limit on our lifespan now, which we didn't used to have. And that's in the second chromosome. It gets deep, but it's fun. Yeah. And it's a good thing to study. Stuff. I'm just saying, it's a good thing to study.
Yeah. Rabbit hole.
Did I hear something?
It's I was just saying you can go down a rabbit hole with that.
That is a rabbit hole, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's springtime, time for Easter, rabbits and all.
Yeah. But it's all coming to light with science, and that's what I love about it, because you have these. So you've been out there, Edge has been out there, but for anybody who hasn't been out there and is watching this stuff purely from their living room, which is fine, but they always want to go, well, why in this, why that, why, well, there are answers there are explanations that are coming to light that would explain why some of these things are happening. And that's what I like about what you're doing. I want to go back a little bit, kind of backtrack for a minute. Most of our, I think you'd have to be living under a rock in this community if people didn't know what you're famous for, the Sierra Sounds. Back in the 70s.
People don't know.
Yeah. Well, back in the 70s, you went out and you went up to this camp, a hunting camp originally, and it wasn't, you weren't going up there for Bigfoot originally, and y'all started having these experiences, and you were able to document them in a nutshell. And so prior to that, I know you had to have heard about Sasquatch or Bigfoot, from the Bob Gimlin, Patterson Gimlin film and other sources. But when you're up there, that very first night that y'all heard something, can you kind of walk me through that? Like, for you personally, what was going through your mind that night?
Well, the Johnson brothers had previously been up there and experienced something. They've been going up there, and this camp, by the way, is 8 miles into the wilderness, about 8,400 feet elevation. It's quite remote, quite imposing to get to. But once you get there, it's really, really nice. And they had camp set up. They've been going there since 1958. and they're pretty old, or one of them passed away now. The other one's he's in his 90s, but anyway, they experienced something in the camp. They didn't know what it was, but they seen this huge footprint out there. They came out and told the other guys. I wasn't part of the group at that time. I just knew them as friends, but I wasn't a hunter. And they came out and told the other guys, and so they all had to know what was going on. So they all back up, except for me. I wasn't there. But they, one of the guys got scared off. Donald, he's my good friend's brother-in-law. He heard these sounds that night, and he said, "That's not right." And he left a note and said, "I'm getting out of here," and he left. And he came out and he says, "Whatever the Johnson brothers were saying, there's some kind of monster up there, and I'm not going back." But the wife said, "You got to go, but somebody's got to find out what went on. These things kill them up there. They eat them. Carry away. What's going on?" He said, "Well, I won't go back." But anyway, that's how I got involved. He asked me because I knew them and he could trust me, and it's kind of a closed camp. They don't let just anybody go there. And but they took me up, or he took me up. We walked in, and that was quite a trip. He's really quite a trip. I thought I was in shape. I mean, I was 29 then, and I was working out all the time, and snow skiing in the wintertime, water skiing in the summertime, and in the gym the other time. I was in good shape, I thought. When you leave the valley floor, which is San Joaquin Valley, and go to where we were, you take off at a little over 6,000 feet elevation, you climb up to over 10,000 feet, your lungs take a hit. It's light air. And I wasn't as good a shape as I thought I was. Anyway, he was. Donald was like a mule. He'd been hard worker. Anyway, he got me there. Got there, the guys were okay, and that's what started all with me. I started going back as often as I could, get someone to go with me, and then we all started taking little cassette tape recorders and recording them. And so that's how it got me involved in it. And I became a hunter after that because I wanted to be part of the group, and they welcomed me into the camp. So they had to. I knew where it was then. Well, shouldn't have said that because I don't know that I could have found it anyway. It's pretty imposing. So anyway, I started going back as often as a kid, and we all, like I said, carried cassette tape recorders after that and started recording these things. But it wasn't until the winter of 71, 72, when Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, he wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson stating that what was going on with us up there, and he wanted to know if he was interested. Well, Ivan Sanderson was a cryptozoologist who has also passed. A lot of people are passing away nowadays, And he thought it was probably somebody pulling his leg, but he sent the letter off to Peter Byrne, which is out on the West Coast. You've probably heard that name before.
Yep.
And anyway, Peter thought the same thing. This can't be true. If anybody sees one of these things more than once in their life, they're phony. You're lucky to see one. It's like getting hit by lightning twice. Well, anyway, he sent it down to Alan Berry, who was in California, asking if he wanted to come down and talk to us to see if there's anything to it. Alan was an investigative reporter working for a newspaper at the time. He came down and talked to us all independently and together, and he heard the sounds that we had recorded, and he was invited in. We invited him in 72, and he was looking for the hoax too, like they thought it was. I didn't know all this until after I read the correspondence years later between the letters and all. And but he was searching our bags. He was doing all kinds of stuff after. But he was also trying to find the problem. What's going on here? This doesn't happen. It's not right. There's an ape out there somewhere. They don't think like this. But anyway, he wrote a book. Co-authored a book with Ann Slade about our camp later on. But anyway, he fostered the sounds. He was convinced that something up there, he couldn't figure out what, was pulling our leg, and he didn't know what to do about it other than try to establish the recordings as being authentic. So he found Dr. Curlin at the University of Wyoming who would take them on unbiasedly and just tell him if they're real, if there's any trickster in them, any kind of speed up, slowed down, or anything going on with them. And Dr. Curlin took them, and he took them seriously. And he by the way, if you ever want to vet him, he's really got high credentials all the way into the military. He stayed for the military as an electrical sound engineer. And he established that these things were outside the human range, inside the human range, above and below, and who knows what frequency they can get to, because we didn't have recorders that would record all the way up in these other frequencies that are out there. But he did say that it represented one little piece of it, and it represented one of the animals over 8 foot tall. Well, that was interesting. And he said they were outside the human range, which he compared it to the average human range. And he shows in a book after he wrote the paper where the range was, the little marks on the icons. And that's in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial. It was published by UCB Press in British Columbia, 1980. So his report was there, but he gave his presentation to the academic society up there in 1978, I think it was. And there was over 400 there in that group. I was there in 1978. Me and Al Berry went up there just for that. And Dr. Curran gave his report on his study up there, but that did not convince the academia that there was something else out there, even though he had credentials that would support anything he said. You got to disprove what he says, because what he came up with was, we thought, groundbreaking, but it didn't go very far. I know Dr. Krantz, who also lived in Sequim, by the way, he discredited our sounds because he was anthropologist from Washington State over there.
Yeah.
Dr. Krantz, he passed away also. But he said they can't be real, just off the cuff. Like, he wouldn't even talk to me or Al Berry, either one. And we tried to. Al Berry came all the way up to my house in Sequim just to go see Krantz. And Krantz, well, he was probably dying at the time anyway, I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because he did break the ground on this thing, so he was on the side of something exists out there, that's for sure. But Jeff Meldrum took over where he was and went over the tracks, as you know. And I might be saying stuff there that you don't want to hear, but
no, I find it very interesting. I had no idea about Dr. Krantz trying to discredit.
He didn't try to. He wrote about it in his book. He just said,
oh, yeah.
I can't believe it, because he was in academia they have to fall within the parameters of academia, which is they have to be, if they exist at all, they have to be a descendant of the Gigantopithecus from Asia, which supposedly went extinct. But
yeah.
So he was in those academic parameters, which they all have those. If you get out of that, you lose credibility. And he lost credibility just for thinking they might exist.
Right.
Or what I heard. I met his granddaughter, I think a few years back. And anyway, that's how it kind of got going. And unfortunately, academia has still got a hold of it totally. However, because of the Patterson film, because of the sounds we got, and the sounds we got, besides just Dr. Curlin's report, a crypto-linguist, Scott Nelson, got a hold of them in 2008. He heard them by accident on the website. And he came out and interviewed me and Al Berry and got the contacts so he could study him. And he's a 2-time graduate of I had him vetted very carefully, by the way, because I know a lot of people say, I know what they're saying, but if you don't have credentials behind you, no one's going to believe you, so you want somebody that's got the credentials to make it worth something. And so Scott has those, and Scott Nelson came out and he studied them. He came back and said, these things have a language. Now, that's more important than I ever thought, but that's critically important that there's a language involved, because according to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, cognitive research scientist, only humans have the vocal mechanism for language. Got that? I say it again, only humans, Homo sapiens, have the vocal mechanism for language. That's the hyoid bone from the nervous system and all the way through the tongue and to the brain, so we can speak any word we want to speak.
Impressive.
It's amazing.
And you guys recorded something else that
Yes, exactly.
Now we have language from something else here.
It's important. And I realize now that puts a human component to these things that we were involved with. They have to have a human component. So that, wow, human component, what does that mean? Well, that's where I got back into Mesopotamia. We're humans. What gave us this? How are we this way? Yeah. So it got me way back into everything because I was raised religiously, knew the Bible pretty well. My go-to was the Bible. Where'd giants come from? Where did all this stuff happen? How's this going on? Well, that didn't get me where I needed to go because I didn't answer the mysteries. It just said, well, the Nephilim were here, and they fallen angels, Well, you get into the cuneiform text from the Anunnaki, and you find out they were the ones from the sky, and they came down, and well, it goes on and on. People got to do their own homework on this because I've been saying it for a long time, and I don't want to get into it because I don't have time. But it's really fascinating, very fascinating how all our current texts, Bible, all the different religious things have been formed from that core, which is cuneiform text. So a lot of things we've been taught throughout history, throughout growing up and everything, has really been manipulated by whoever was in charge and wanted us to believe certain things. Excuse me. So I'm saying all that because in my second book, The Quantum Bigfoot, I write about religion because I think religion has steered us in some places wrong. And it depends on who wanted what from what. And it was all started in 326 with Constantine, but that gets into a whole nother story to it.
Yeah.
Not a lot to do with Bigfoot. So I'm probably holding up on all your questions right now. But that's what's exciting. That's what's exciting to me, Matt, is this right here. And I speak about it all the time. In fact, this weekend I'm speaking again in Arkansas, Jasper. Excuse me. So anyway, I'm sorry. Got off.
No, you're good. All that's very exciting stuff, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show. On this show we try to dabble in a little bit of it all. Edge, I think he is. I have a very open mind. Edge, I think, has an even more open mind than me sometimes. But but I think that's what makes us great, as a team out there.
Exactly. Yeah. I tell people if you don't have an open mind, you're not ever going to get anywhere because I treat it like a parachute. If you don't open when you jump out of the plane, you're in trouble. So you just got to have an open mind.
It's frustrating to me. We talked about the academics and stuff. Some academics are not accepting to certain things because they have to stay within a box, right? If it doesn't fit in here, and then they risk their whole career and everything. But like my background, before I moved here to Washington, was a lieutenant for the state of Texas, for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And some of the evidence that comes across, if I just ignored that from a professional standpoint, let's say this was a criminal case, I probably wouldn't have much of a job. If certain things came across my desk and I didn't bother to investigate them or look at them because they don't fit within the parameter, right? And so you have to look at everything. You have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to go places that are uncomfortable sometimes. And sometimes you find some truths. And so that's
absolutely. Yes. You find truths that are going to work with you.
Right.
We all have our mind working now. We've all been conditioned. From the time of birth, we've all been conditioned. And that's just us as humans.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you have to break loose of that a little bit and realize that there's other things going on. And I'm glad to hear that you're open-minded because that's the only people that can ever possibly get ahead and understand some of this stuff. Because it's, I think these things go way, way back before Homo sapiens. I just do. And that's because of the cuneiform text, the Sumerian text and all that stuff. But they're not what we are, but they have something we have. Language, number one. And but they're not all the same. I think aliens have been coming here for eons. They're here now, by the way. Just thought about that.
Yeah.
However, you won't know it because they can be out of our perception.
Yeah.
Because they
Well,
have they're not stuck in a third density.
When we lived in Quinault, we would experience so many things that I don't talk about publicly because lack of knowledge, number one, of what I was dealing with. The things, we would see glimpses of them. I had my own personal sighting on 101 there. We would hear my girls actually heard them way more than I heard them. They heard the vocalize after I would leave in the morning. It seemed like they waited till I was gone or not around. There was one time where I did hear, I guess, chatter, I guess you could say. And it sounded very similar, but not quite like what you recorded. But I have theories. I think that there's different dialects, if these things have language and they're spread out over different regions, then they probably have different dialects and things. But it was very, very similar to what you recorded, but different, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of them have different attributes just because, like a lot of them have crossbred with indigenous people over the eons of time. And a lot of native lore goes back into them taking their women and breeding with them. In fact, that's biblical too, when they were crossbreeding with the humans.
Yeah.
But if they can do that, which means the chromosomes would have to match up. Of course, they have advanced genetic knowledge that we probably are just getting into, how you can clone things and do things. So I think a lot of them have been crossbred with indigenous people, and that's what I think Patterson film was, because even though Bob and Roger might have been planning a fake movie, I don't know if Bob was part of that or not. I don't think he was, but I know Patterson probably was. He was trying to do a movie on Bigfoot. He was doing all that stuff, but they came across a real one when they went into Bluff Creek. And I think that's what Bob witnessed, was a real one. So I'm going to stand with Bob on that, unless he tells me something different. I just met with him when I was in Yakima last year, by the way, and I went over to his house. And anyway, I know, unless he's hiding something we don't know about, which I don't think so, but I think they ran across a real one. And I think that Bill Munns, who you may have heard that name before, he's a Hollywood guy who I read his interview substantiating that film, and the authenticity of it is, I believe that 100%, and he believes it 100%. I know Bill Munns. I spoke with him in California years and years ago, but he's a forensic, and he's good. And when you hear that, and all the different people that tried to debunk that film over the years, the only thing that kept it in the gray area was they couldn't find the original.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's another story altogether. But what we ran into in the Sierras was something unique, and it's been a blessing and a cursing.
Yeah,
both. So it's been quite.
I'm in the same camp that you are. I think that these go back a long time, and that there's multiple species. Like science is, I think, coming around to talking about that again, where, there's discoveries of little people, big people, Denisovans, Neanderthals, now they're starting to come around to it. And I think that, there's remnants of these different things. We've been asking questions, and Matt has, he believes that there are physical changes, from one to another too. Like maybe the ones in California have more of that sagittal crest on their head, and maybe the Pacific Northwest ones are more flat. I don't know. But there may be different species still out there. I totally believe that.
Yeah. Well, like the one in Nepal, in the Himalayas, that they're only like 6 foot, and they're different. I've been around the world with this, as you know, and just about every culture has their own ideas about this stuff and have their own reports on what they look like, what they do. So I think a lot of them have just diluted down into enjoying this third density they're in, or some of them can get out of it, because once you learn the frequency, you can get out of this density. And I think some of them go underground. There's innumerable amounts of theories about this stuff, but it's all fun to study, and it's interesting stuff. And what they can do, and hear all the different people from over the years. Like I've been doing this for over 50 years now, and you know, there's just so many different credible reports that all the way from Russia. When I was in Siberia, I listened to these people over there, and through an interpreter. I don't speak that language, you know, but and down in Peru when I was down in there, goodness, these people, they take this stuff for granted down there. UFOs and aliens are just all over. They take it for granted. They don't have a theory about it or anything like that. They've seen it. They know it's there. I was taken out to a cemetery one time by the police patrolman down there, or entourage, really. We all were. It was just 3 or 4 of us, and examining those elongated skulls. And they took us out to the cemetery up on this mountain. We looked out over this mountain. It was 7 acres, 7 square miles, not 7 acres, 7 square miles of a cemetery. All you could see, as far as you could see, is these holes with a mound, holes with a mound, holes with a mound. Grave diggers go out there and digging up these graves, trying to find these artifacts that they would sell to a museum. So I went to museums and saw them, and that's where we got these pictures. I took these pictures, these elongated skulls. We weighed the skulls. I was down there 2 different times, 2 different years, with 2 different scientists examining these skulls down there to see if they had any relationship to, for me anyway, see if they had any relationship to the Bigfoot up here. And because they were elongated. And I mean, when I say elongated, not just elongated, there's no sagittal suture going through here. There's just one skull. And we have a sagittal suture. We have 2 parietals, one on each side, you know, and they're not that way at all. And just you start studying that stuff, they weighed about 25-30% more than what a human skull weighs. And so they had more brain matter. And we think they were responsible for the megalithic structures in Peru and Bolivia and those places. Other places I went to there, Tiwanaku and those places, have all these remnants of something from the past that did some pretty magnificent things that we don't know how they did. And when you see that with your own eyes, it really opens your mind up to talk about an open mind. You got to have an open mind to see all that stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty. Anyway. That's pretty awesome that you got the chance to go down there and firsthand see that. And that's the other thing. I think a lot of people don't realize about you. I certainly didn't know it till I met you in Yakima that you've been all over. You've been everywhere from Toba Inlet up in Canada all the way down to South America to you name it. It seems like you really trotted the globe in search.
I flew up there. I used to have airplanes, and I flew up there. I was a pilot. Still am, I guess, but I flew with Peter Byrne and Al Berry. We went up to research the Toba Inlet story, you know, Albert Osman.
Yep.
That was interesting. I got a chapter about that in my book, too, so one of my books.
Hey, Ron.
Yes.
Hey, have you been to Montana's megalithic wall?
No, I've been to Montana. I know David pretty well, Pilates and Joe Hauser, who live up there. I spoke up there 2 or 3 years ago for their Bigfoot, what it was. Aliens are up there. I know Joe sees them going in and out of a mountain up there quite a bit at the Montana Vortex. And there's
that megalithic wall in Montana raises lots of questions because of the age, right? You know, the ice walls and so pre-ice age, right?
I haven't seen it. I have not been to that megalithic wall in Montana.
Yeah, there's a large megalithic wall, and that the reason why we don't hear about that one as much, they say, you know, conspiracy, is because a lot of those megaliths are in, you know, tropical and subtropical zones. This one would have been under 3 miles of ice during any time that they would have been built, you know, during those time periods. So it really raises a question on the time period in which these megalithic things were built.
Yeah. We tend to live in a bubble, I think, a bubble of time. We think we do anyway.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of thousands of years going on that some religions even teach we've only been here 6,000 years, you know. Well, that's the way I was brought up, but that doesn't fit. You know, just there's more went on. And yeah.
There's series, Unearthing America, that I used to watch when I was younger, and the guy would go all over and he'd talk about the Knight Templars and how people before Columbus. So there's definitely a whole history going on.
You can go down a rabbit hole with Scott.
Yeah, we get down a rabbit hole, but he's a forensic geologist, and so he explains some of these structures, how, you know, history says this, but that can't be so because he's a forensic geologist and he proves. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But no, I wanted to ask you, you know, one of the things, you know, I think Edge said it a minute ago, conspiracy. Do you think that you've been doing this for a long time, for 50 years, and I know that I have seen some things just personally, and me and Edge just recently had an experience back in December, and now it's off limits, right? We can't go there because the park said no, but it came out in the papers and everything. We filmed something up there, and then like 2 weeks later, we're shut out. But my thing is, do you think that maybe there is a lack of funding, they said, for maintenance, but like 35 miles of road and other stuff. But anyways, do you think that there is maybe a conspiracy by people out there to try to suppress information, whether it be just individual institutions or government or whatever?
Yeah, I think if the government can't explain something, and they can't explain this, really, they either hide it or they make fun of it or do something to keep it off the public. Like the Roswell UFO crash, same thing, you know. They hide it, or they make fun of it, or they discredit the person that reported it. Right. But yeah, I think they know about it. They just can't do anything about it. They don't know what to do about it. Because once this comes out, and it will come out, because they're starting now to release UFO information, and that's going to start a wheel rolling. More and more people are seeing these Bigfoot creatures too, because they are multiplying. When they're at third density, they multiply, and they are multiplying. People are seeing them. They're seeing them in the Olympics a lot, and all the way up north. Yeah. So there's a lot going on up there. I'll be out there in June. Maybe I'll hook up with you or something. See. I'll be in, like I say, Packwood. So last of June. That'd be fun. I'd love to meet Mel's putting that on. The Yakima crab.
Yeah.
At the time I told him I'd do that, I was living in Olympia. So I thought I could just drive down there, no big deal, you know. But now I'm in Tennessee, so I can fly back there.
Yeah. Yeah, Mel, he's a good guy. He invited me to do that, and that was really nice of him. And me and Harvest, actually, we were Harvest Moon with the Quinault tribe. We were going to team up and drive over, but then I ended up moving up here to Port Angeles. And so, it was a good time. It was a good show.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a nice venue over there.
Yeah. Yeah, next time you're up here in June, or anytime you're in the Olympics, hit us up, and we'd love to go out. There's a couple areas that we have that are kind of off limits to the general public. So,
well, I'll probably stay in Olympia with my daughter. My daughter lives in Olympia, so I'll be staying with her for a while, and who knows? I jump all over the place.
Right. Well, before we let you go, we've enjoyed the conversation. It's been absolutely great. We'd love to have you back on one day. But is there any projects, any books, any events coming up that you're speaking at that you would love to kind of promote right now or put out there?
Well, I just mentioned the one in Jasper, Arkansas. That's this weekend, and I'll be heading out there tomorrow, actually. And then after that, I get back, I'm supposed to go into LBL with Martin Groves, the Land Between the Lakes. The Dogman, they've been seeing him back there now quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's something going on there.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was on a podcast with him and Daryl Denton. Like we have our own podcast Monday night it was. was this Wednesday? Yeah, that's well, they're recording, so they won't. But yeah, Martin has had face-to-face encounter. Martin Groves with Dogman. He's a deputy sheriff, retired, and he's very, very credible. He's written a book on it and all that. He's been in there now, and I'm going to be going to him and Daryl going in there sometime in May, and then June I'll be heading back out west. I'll be in Washington, probably most of the summer.
Okay.
Or Oregon one. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you've written 3 books, and you have the Sierra. You've written 3 books, right? Or is it more? It's just
3.
3. Yep.
3.
And you have the Sierra Sounds. We'll put up your website. People can go there and publish those or purchase those and help support.
Yeah, they're all downloadable too, Matt. I mean, you can download the book, or you can order a paperback of any of them. And also, I have 2 CDs with the sounds narrated, one by me and one by Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek. Yep. Yeah, I narrate that one. Thank you, Edge. Yeah. And I put that together myself and put the interactive sounds on that. And that's Matt, Matt Moneymaker. You've heard that name before.
Yep, I know Matt.
Yeah, he actually coined the term samurai chatter. He heard those just before he started the BFRO. Came up to Washington and seen me when I lived in Port Townsend. I had a Victorian over there. Oh, that's a nightmare, Victorian. But he heard the sounds, and he put the BFRO up after that. But he coined the sound samurai chatter when he heard those, and he put them on his website. So that's actually what got Scott Nelson, the crypto-linguist, into this with me. I say with me because he's gone up to Sarah Camp now, I think 3 times, trying to capture more sounds or something, and unsuccessfully, because these things are a step ahead of us. They got this intuitiveness about them that most people underestimate.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We experienced that in Quinault. I would go out, I would put up, people said, "Oh, you had it happening for 4.5 years. Why didn't you capture more?"
I get the same thing.
We tried. I got lucky with some blurry pics.
Tell them to go out there and try it. It's not that easy because these things seem to be a step ahead of you. I say they're one note above the music, something like that. Because
I even did one time. I put up. They seem to love to take shrimp or plums or corn anytime I would put that out. And one time I put up this game camera, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm not even going to try to hide it because they seem to know, but I'm going to set a shrimp right in front of the game camera, right? and maybe I can catch a hand reaching around snatching the shrimp. And I go out the next day, nothing. I go out the next night, and the next day, and that sometime during that night, they came right up behind the game camera and just stood there right behind it, because you could see a 15.5-inch track in the soil. And I was like, but it wouldn't touch that shrimp. I was like, I take the camera away though, and they took the shrimp. So yeah.
Oh, they're in tune to exploitation. They're not supposed to interfere with our karma. We're all here to respond to issues and to go through life in third density with challenges and things to deal with and things we're going to make choices with. And that's what we're here for. That's what life's about, is making the right choice. And we do that with love and compassion with everything. Never consider yourself a victim. I like to say this when I'm in these things, and they're not supposed to interfere with that. Nothing's supposed to interfere with that. No other person is supposed to interfere with that, because it's our choice. You can't tell somebody else what to do. You can only suggest something, but it's their choice. And that's what's going to make you or break you in changing your density out of this third density someday, somehow, some way.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you.
Anybody, I highly recommend going out, getting the book, read it, or like Ron said, you can download the book. Voices in the Wilderness will tell you more about the Sierra Sounds. And then if you're interested, get into that other stuff. I highly encourage it. The quantum stuff.
The people that are doing a film on that book right now, the people that are doing it, the production company, Renaissance, do the Flash of Beauty.
Yep.
Those two, they're going to be at the meeting this weekend, and they're going to be supposedly getting that film out by summer. So that'd be awesome. Should be good. They say it's bulletproof.
They do an awesome job. That should be a good one.
Anybody on the edge, they say, is going to be off the edge once they see the film, because they've got all the stuff for it. And I know they've been working on this for 3 years. So
okay.
I would tell you, Brett and Jill out there, for people, he's talking about the Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot stuff. Those they're awesome. They are outstanding. I did work with the Discovery Channel, and they kind of butchered me a little bit, being a big network. But I mean, they didn't do me. They just didn't quite. I wasn't very happy with it a little bit, But
one French fry short of a Happy Meal, huh?
Yeah, Brett and Jill. I did work with them, and they put my story out there, and boy, they kept it true, and they so they're great. They're great people, and I just know it's going to be a good film. We're actually in talks to get them on the show, and so maybe we can talk about that after they come on.
Well, I'll be talking to them this weekend, so I'll be seeing them and talking to them more about the film and what have you, because I think they've got all the people now they need for the film interviewed. Their last person was Greg Berry, Al Berry's son. And, I think they got that nailed down. I think I'll find out more about that this weekend. I talked to Greg here not too long ago, and he said he's waiting on them. So we'll see, and then they'll put it together, because Brett's a good editor. And, they're a good team. Good team. Yeah. They got Mike, the cameraman, helping them out too. And
good deal.
So we'll see. Well, thanks for asking me on. I appreciate being with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. This has been really fun. We'll have to have you back, and look forward to maybe seeing you soon.
There's a lot more to this. It's hard to cover it in an hour, but it's just.
I know.
If you will stick around for just a minute, Ron, after the show, and we'll go ahead and close out here. But again, thank you for coming on, and I know the audience, they're gonna love this.
Yeah, our fans are gonna really love this one. Hey, thanks again, Ron. It was good to see you again, sir. And we'll see you again at one of these conventions.
That's my website, ronmorehead.com. If I want to order any of this stuff.
Yep. We will put that in the description.
All right.
Get that out there.
All right, Ron. Thanks again, man.
Take care, Edge.